Well, hey there. Welcome to the Super Blog Codec with Danny. I'm Danny, and I'm going to be your narrator. What is the Super Blog Codec? It's an audio version of a blog post found over on the SuperPod network. You can find an awesome variety of video game related podcasts, blogs, and other quality video game content at superpodnetwork.com. If you don't really like reading or you don't have time for a full-blown podcast episode, the Superblog Codec is here to help. Every episode of the Superblog Codec, I get permission from the cool human who wrote the original blog post to read their thoughts out loud for you. If you like listening to me yap, but you've run out of episodes, I also stream on Twitch more frequently than I release podcast episodes. All of the links to the blog I'm going to be reading, my SuperPod profile, and my Twitch can be found in the description. Today, on the Superblog Codec, I'm going to be reading to you LucieLu's very first blog post titled Stardew Valley NPCs and Their Drastically Different Backstories despite living in the same tiny village. This was posted to the SuperPod network on May 21st of 2025. So, before we get into reading the actual blog post, I just had a small podcaster note to add here. I actually do have a very small amount of experience with this game because I've been playing Stardew Valley with Lucie because of this very blog post, which I thought was a cool little thing to note. I had played many years ago, and I never really got into it, but after reading the interesting lore and the backstories of all the villagers in this post, it inspired me to restart the game, and I thought, who better to take me around Pelican Town than Lucie? She's a great teacher, and she gives me lots of freedom to kind of explore on my own, and if I have questions, she has immediate answers for me. It's really cool. So being able to pick her brain as I'm going around meeting the villagers and saying, oh, hey, I know a little bit about you already because I read that blog post, and it's been easier to digest and figure out what's going on because of Lucie. So, Lucie, thank you very much for being patient with me and for allowing me to read your blog post out loud for the Superblog Codec. Let's get into it. Before we begin, I have nothing but love in my heart for Stardew, every NPC, Leah, best wife, and the dev, yes, the one dev, Eric Barone, and that this will contain spoilers relating to all the Stardew NPCs' backstories. In my 1,000 plus hours playing Stardew Valley, I have dated, married, and divorced every dateable NPC the tiny village of Pelican Town has to offer, which has graced me with the knowledge of the sometimes fun, mostly incredibly traumatic backstory of each of them. From Haley's seemingly normal, popular girl-filled childhood to Shane being a depressed alcoholic suddenly in charge of an actual human child because his best friend died backstory, it seems every eligible bachelor and bachelorette has a drastically different and, honestly, absolutely wild backstory, despite all living in the same tiny village. Yet, it makes sense. People always seem to wonder how that farming game came to become one of the most beloved games in the cozy games community and beyond, with over 41 million copies sold worldwide as of December 2024. But that's where I come in. I'm here to tell you why I think it sold so well, and one of the reasons is the NPCs and how all their backstories are incredibly intertwined within the game's lore and settings. Nothing would excite me more than to tell you all about them. So, grab a cup of some Stardrop tea, find a comfy seat, and hold on to your horses. For the sake of length, I'm going to attempt to only stick to backstories. We'll format this by introducing each NPC in their respective pairings. Pelican Town offers you, the farmer, 12 options of candidates to fall in love with. 6 men and 6 women. Each are technically linked to another as their match, and are heavily hinted at in the game's dialogue as being a little bit more than besties. Our first pair is Alex, the popular sporty jock boy, and Haley, the girly, fashion-loving popular girl. Alex's mother died due to an unknown disease when he was young. His father was abusive, leading him to living in Pelican Town with his grandparents. He never learned how to read properly, likely due to his father's abuse, but his motivation is gridball, the game's version of American football. Alex loves gridball and all it has to offer, which, for him, was unfortunately not much. While he likely played to avoid addressing his feelings and shortcomings during high school, once it was over, he was left with no team, despite still telling the farmer he would go pro one day. Many of Alex's behaviors stem from his father, likely believing it was normal. He's arrogant and dismissive to the world. But once the farmer gets to know him, we see a more emotional, softer side to him. Something he probably hid as a means of survival. Haley, on the other hand, did not experience the tragic loss of her parents, but rather the absence of them. Haley lives with her older sister, Emily, who we'll get to later. Their parents used to live with them, but left quite some time before the farmer's arrival to travel the world, leaving them the house and, very rarely, sending back presents or correspondence as to their whereabouts. This left Haley with very little direction in life, resulting in a somewhat spoiled girl complex. Despite this, deep down, she feels lost, unsure of her talents with photography, and feeling guilt about her mean girl ways. Haley clings to Alex, and together, they both seem to be clinging onto the last remnants of being popular during high school. Yet, there's more to Haley than what meets the eye. As further into her story, we see her packing up clothes to donate to charity, admitting that she now sees that others may actually need them, where, for her, they were just wants. Our second pair is Elliot, the hopeless romantic writer who lives in a shack on the beach, and Leah, a mushroom forager, physical arts artist who lives in a cabin in the woods. Elliot is a man who prefers the finer things in life, despite living in a shack, and is one of the few NPCs where the game doesn't heavily suggest things relating to their backstory. But that won't stop me. Elliot is mainly insecure about many things in life, and although Haley would shut the door in your face if you suggested this, I believe them to be similar. At any chance possible, he'll tell anyone that will listen that he is a writer, a creative, working on something bigger than life itself. All in seeking that one thing, admiration. Many theorize from this that Elliot was a mostly quiet, ignored child, developing his attitudes and behaviors in a way to stand out, to break free. He also decides to make the farmer his inspiration for his book, despite having just met you. This suggests that he may have not actually had all these brilliant ideas and stories already brewing, and that possibly writing isn't his passion, but rather something he simply picked up one day in his attempt to be adored by the masses. However, when we take a look at Leah, we get the most visual backstory the game offers us. Leah is a forager, a true embodiment of cottagecore, living alone in her small wooden cottage in the forest, carving wooden sculptures and painting pictures of her surroundings. However, she's very insecure about herself and her art, a common theme with the other NPCs. Leah doesn't believe her art to be good enough to actually make a living from it, and those insecurities stem from her ex-partner. An ex-girlfriend if your farmer is a female, and an ex-boyfriend if your farmer is a male. Leah's ex-partner, Kel, wanted the white picket fence kind of life, PTA meetings with kids and growing old in the city, far away from any kind of nature. Kel also didn't care about Leah's art or interests, believing them to just be silly hobbies, not worth anything. Leah decided to leave Kel and is now feeling guilty about it. She feels selfish for choosing her own happiness, further highlighting the way Kel must have treated her. When you give Leah a boost of confidence to sell her art online, she sells many pieces to some rich dude named Mr. K. Leah is happy that someone appreciates her art, yet we later see Kel lurking around her cottage, uninvited, and when confronted, admits that they are Mr. K, and bought them because they want Leah back. Things take a turn for the better when either the farmer or Leah gets the option to punch Kel in the face. Moving swiftly on to possibly the sweetest pairing, Sam, a still young at heart, pizza-loving musician skater boy, and Penny, the literal embodiment of an angel, uses her spare time to educate the children of the town girl. Sam still lives with his parents, as do most of the NPCs. Housing costs found their way to Pelican Town too. And his younger brother, Vincent. His mother is an average, middle-aged woman who never made Sam do his chores properly or learn the basics such as cooking or problem management. But his backstory is what unlocks a darker side to the lore of Stardew Valley. His father is fighting in an ongoing war between territories. Away for years at a time, Sam misses having a father figure in his life, possibly resulting in the childish nature we still see in him, skateboarding on others' properties, stuffing down pizza, and playing his drums loud enough for all of the town to hear him. It's quite the surprise to see his pairing is Penny. Penny lives in the most run-down house within the valley, a tiny, rusty trailer, with her aged, alcoholic mother, Pam. Pam sleeps on the couch and has given Penny the one bedroom within the trailer, which seems to be one of the very few gestures of love we see towards her daughter. Pam is a broke drunk, running up a tab of money she doesn't have at the saloon each night, and Penny is the one that must deal with her when she returns home, sometimes having to be the one to even get her there in the first place. Penny cleans up after her mother constantly, and when confiding in the farmer about her struggles, Pam barges in and tells Penny to stop talking. Penny also teaches the two youngsters of the town, Jazz and Vincent, pointing towards the idea that Penny could have had a much brighter life as a schoolteacher in the big city, if only she didn't have her alcoholic mother to worry about. Next up is Sebastian, the lives in the basement, spends multiple hours alone playing computer games, and only leaves his house to look at frogs or smoke loner boy, and Abigail, the hates her parents, dyed her hair purple to rebel, and yearns for the mines girl. Sebastian lives at home with his mother Robin, stepfather Demetrius, and academically superior half-sister Maru, who we will get to later. His room is in the basement, suggesting that him having his own proper room was not all that thought out. Sebastian is clever in his own ways that often go overlooked by most of the townsfolk. He works from home as a freelance programmer, and many instances during the game, we see people disregard his job, not seeing that it's a real job due to the less traditional route. But Sebastian prefers his lifestyle. Walled away from most people, he's secretly planning his escape to go and live in the big city, away from the boring constraints of Pelican Town. He feels lost and alone, and never bonded with his new father figure, Demetrius. This is no fault of his own. Demetrius also prefers the company of his own real child, Maru. We don't know much of Sebastian's birth father, but we can theorize through dialogue that Robin becoming pregnant with Sebastian is what caused the rift between the pair, which is perhaps what leads Sebastian to staying well out of the way of others, forever feeling responsible for breaking people apart, not wanting to do the same ever again. Abigail, however, still retains both of her parents and lacks a sibling to compare herself to. Instead, she lives at home with her overbearing father and arrogant owner of the local produce store, Pierre, and her easier-going mother, Caroline. Abigail is a rebellious teen, one of the youngest candidates at a theorized age of 18. She hates her father for sticking traditional woman roles on her and dreams about going to the mines to fight for herself. Her past happened to be one of the most theorized parts of Stardew, as Abigail dyed her hair purple once, years ago, and the color never faded. Many believe Abigail is either the secret daughter or granddaughter of the wizard of the town. She herself feels drawn to the wizard's tower, often taking secret walks and hanging out in that area of the forest. Perhaps her father's attempts to tie down her unruly nature reveals his own suspicions on the matter, trying to stuff his socially abnormal daughter into the traditional gender roles that he deems appropriate, without stopping to ever consider her feelings. Although Sebastian can't move on from his trauma, we shall move on to Harvey, the aviation-loving, cheese-hating, concerned doctor of the town boy, although more of a man at the theorized age of 30, and Maru, the overprotected, academic superstar, scientist tinkerer girl. Harvey is the town doctor and lives upstairs to his office alone. When spoken to, he opens up to the farmer about his ambitions to become a pilot and how those were quickly squashed due to his poor eyesight. Harvey feels trapped within Pelican Town, being the only doctor, but struggling with money. Leaving would grant him a better life, but he can't leave the townsfolk without medical care. Staying is what he feels like to be his only option, which further pours salt in the wounds of the man who wishes to be high in the sky, flying his own plane away from everything. Maru is Harvey's pair within the game. As we know from Sebastian, she lives at home with her father Demetrius and her mother Robin, as well as her half-brother. Maru has her own proper room, with her own entrance and exit to the outside attached, although it stays firmly locked, probably by her overbearing father Demetrius. There's no doubt that he has unhealthy ways of dealing with his own feelings. He attempts to block out any outside distractions from Maru, so she can focus on her career within the sciences. In doing so, he fails to realize he's hindering her from growing into her own person. Maru is secretly building a robot in the small basement area below her room. Hiding it from her father, knowing he would be upset she wasn't working on science projects he deems more worth her time. There's no denying Maru may be feeling academic burnout and simply wants to focus on passion projects instead. Trigger warning: suicide/depression for the following of Shane and Emily. Shane is the depressed, near-suicidal, broke alcoholic sad boy, and Emily is the bright, vibrant, happy-go-lucky, the world is wonderful if you stop to smell the flowers girl. Shane lives with his Aunt Marnie on the ranch. At first glance, it seems like the small child, Jazz, that resides with them is Marnie's daughter, and therefore Shane's niece. However, things take a darker turn as we learn that Jazz is Shane's goddaughter. In his old life, before Pelican Town, Shane had a best friend, who was Jazz's father. He died unexpectedly, leaving Jazz to Shane's responsibility. What's next is theorized from dialogue during the game, but it's to be believed that Shane's parents wanted him to give up Jazz for adoption so he could focus on his own career. Shane refused, moving him and Jazz to the one family member he knew would understand and help: Marnie. With the weight off his shoulders, he fell deep into a pool of grief for his friend, for his past life, for what could have been. Shane drinks every night at the saloon and is very standoffish to the farmer when they first meet. Upon gaining more hearts with him, we see a scene in which he has gotten blackout drunk and attempted to throw himself off the cliffside, but thankfully was so drunk he didn't make it far enough. Afterwards, he agrees to therapy and sticks to Joja Colas instead of beer. Serving him those Joja Colas is Emily. Emily lives at home with her sister Haley and is the parent figure of the house, often organizing chores and paying for Haley's things. She loves her crystals and their properties and is often seen meditating and surrounding herself with bright colors. While she seems like she may have a little less going on in her mind than others, getting to know her tells a different story. When her parents left, Emily was the one left responsible for Haley, despite still having been a teenager herself. Haley and her lack of grasp on the world when it comes to responsibilities frustrates Emily, but she knows she cannot move and leave Haley on her own. So, she stays, working at the saloon with the owner Gus and finding joy in what she does have: her crafting, the nature surrounding her, and of course, spiritual dancing. And that's the last of them. All 12 marriage candidates and their surprisingly different backstories despite living in the same tiny village. While a lot of this stuff is just theorized, they are all loosely based, at least a little bit, in dialogue or things from within the game. So from bland Harvey and his poor eyesight to Shane's anti-alive tendencies, I think it's safe to still say that Leah is best wife. This was my first blog, so don't be mean to me or I'll most likely cry. Maybe there's even already another in the works for the rest of the NPCs that Pelican Town has to offer. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Superblog Codec. If you want to interact with the show and let me know what you think of this podcast, you can leave a comment below, or you can find me at the Superpod website at superpodnetwork.com. Thank you for spending some time with me today. Don't forget to check out the links in the description to find more ways to follow Superpod content. Catch you next time, and make sure you're taking care of yourself, friend. Thanks for listening.